Hey, thanks so much for being here and watching this video. If you enjoy this kind of content, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. I'm working toward hitting 1,000 subscribers, and your support truly makes a difference. Don't forget to leave a like so more people can discover this story. Every video I make takes time, effort, and a lot of care just for you. Feel free to share it with your friends and make sure to stick around until the end. I hope you enjoy it. I was paying $1,400 to live in my parents' house. While my siblings paid nothing, then my mom told me it still wasn't enough. So I said one thing at dinner, and the entire table froze. The room didn't just go quiet, it tightened, like something invisible had snapped and was pulling everything inward. I hadn't even raised my voice yet, but something was already in motion. Something I knew even then wasn't going to be undone. And then my mother charged me $1,400 a month to live in the house I grew up in. Before you ask, no. That didn't include groceries, or utilities, or even a spot in the driveway. That was reserved for Tyler's truck. I parked on the street, always the street, like I didn't belong. Actually, worse than that. Guests got the driveway, I got the curb. My name's Jolene. I'm 27. I have a 4-year-old daughter named Birdie. And until recently, I worked as a housekeeper at a Hampton Inn just off I-75 in Dayton, Ohio. $12.60 an hour. After taxes, it came out to about $1,600 a month. Do the math. After handing my parents $1,400, I had maybe $200 left. That was supposed to cover gas, food, daycare gaps, everything. Existing wasn't even part of the budget. It was just something I kept failing to afford. Here's the part that still makes my chest tighten. My older brother Tyler, 31, lived in that same house. Rent-free. My younger sister Casey, 23, same thing. Not a dollar. Tyler had the finished basement. Big TV, his own bathroom. Door always shut like he was running a private operation down there. Casey had her old room upstairs, the one with the bay window that caught the morning light. And me? Me and Birdie shared my childhood room. Same peeling posters under fresh paint. Same full-size mattress. Every night she kicked me in the ribs in her sleep like she was practicing for something bigger. I never complained. Tyler bartended 3 nights a week. The rest of the time he was downstairs with his headset on, yelling at people through a screen. Casey worked part-time at a tanning salon and spent more time picking outfits than working shifts. Neither of them paid anything, not even lip service. I asked my mom once, just once, why I was the only one paying rent. She didn't hesitate, didn't even blink. Because you have a child, Jolene. You're using more resources. She said it like it was obvious, like I'd missed something basic. More resources. My 4-year-old who lived off chicken nuggets, apple slices, and whatever snacks I could stretch into dinners. That was the problem. That was the drain. My dad, Hank, he didn't weigh in. He never did. Sat in his recliner, ESPN humming in the background, nodding at whatever my mom said like it was already decided. And Denise, my mother, ran that house like it was her domain. Everything she gave came with weight. Every favor had interest attached. Letting me stay in my own childhood bedroom? That was charity. Generosity so extreme I was supposed to feel grateful just breathing the air. Then came the conditions. If I helped more around the house, she might lower the rent. Might. She used that word like a contract loophole. Just enough promise to keep me working, never enough to actually commit. So I did it. Every night I cleaned the kitchen. Not just wiped down, deep cleaned. Counters, stovetop, sink, everything. I vacuumed the living room. I did everyone's laundry. Tyler's sweat-soaked gym clothes. Casey's neatly folded polos. My dad's endless stack of khaki pants. Weekends, I scrubbed bathrooms. On my knees. Bleach in my lungs. I cleaned for a living. Then came home and cleaned more, for the privilege of paying to stay there. My hands cracked open that winter, skin splitting at the knuckles. Birdie would line up her little Disney princess Band-Aids like she was fixing me, one careful piece at a time. She took it seriously, like if she did it right, I'd stop hurting. That kid, she was the only reason I didn't break completely. Now, you're probably wondering about my grandma. Ruth, I'll get to her, I promise. Because she matters, more than anyone realized. But at that point, she was 2 hours away in Lancaster, and my mom had already told her everything was fine, that I was doing great, that I was happy to be home. Grandma believed it. Why wouldn't she? Her own daughter said it. And Denise? Denise lied like it was second nature, like truth was just another option she didn't feel like choosing. Then Thursday happened. Mid-February, one of those gray Ohio days where the sky just sits on top of you. I worked a double shift. My feet were numb, picked Bertie up from daycare, something I paid for alone, and drove home already exhausted in a way that didn't go away with sleep. I walked in and smelled pot roast. The whole family was already at the table. Plates full, voices low, forks moving. My mom looked up, casual as anything. "Oh, there's leftovers if you want to fix yourself something." No plate set, no space made. I put Bertie down and she ran toward the table. Of course she did. She smelled food. She saw chairs. She tried to climb into one. Casey didn't even look up when she said, "That's actually where my bag is." Her purse was sitting in the chair. My daughter wasn't. That was the moment. Not loud, not dramatic, just something inside me shifting, like a quiet click. You ever feel that? The exact second something changes in you? That was it. But I didn't say anything. Not yet. I made Bertie a plate. Small portions, stretching what was left. We stood at the kitchen counter and ate in silence while the rest of them stayed at the table, like we were separate scenes happening in the same room. No one asked us to sit. No one moved a chair. The chairs had all been pulled in tight for family dinner. We just weren't part of it. Sunday came, my mom's scheduled ritual. 5 o'clock, everyone present. I dressed Bertie in a little yellow dress with daisies, something Grandma Ruth had mailed for her birthday. It still smelled faintly like lavender when I pulled it from the package. We sat down. Lemon chicken, her best dish. I'll give her that. Then she looked straight at me. Didn't lower her voice. "Jolene, the upstairs bathroom hasn't been done this week. If you want me to think about adjusting your rent, you need to stay on top of things." Right there, in front of everyone. I wasn't her daughter in that moment. I was staff. No, worse than staff. At least staff gets paid. I set my fork down, didn't rush it. "Mom," I said, steady, "I pay you $1,400 a month. Tyler pays nothing. Casey pays nothing." The silence didn't break. It hardened. Like everyone at that table was waiting to see who would fold first. And for once, it wasn't going to be me. "I cleaned this entire house after 8-hour shifts," I said. My voice stayed level, which somehow made it worse. "I pay for my groceries, Bertie's daycare, everything. And Thursday night, you didn't even set a plate for my daughter. Casey's purse had a seat. Bertie didn't." No one moved. Tyler stopped chewing mid-bite, like his brain had to catch up with what was happening. Casey slowly looked up from her phone, her expression blank, but her fingers tightening around it. My dad's eyes lifted from his plate, drifting toward me like he'd just remembered I was in the room. And my mom, she didn't flinch. "I cannot believe you'd say that at my dinner table." My, not ours, not family. Hers. I let that sit for half a second. Just enough. "The table I scrubbed yesterday while you watched your shows?" Something flickered across her face then. Not guilt. Never that. Just irritation. Like I'd crossed a line I wasn't supposed to even see. Then she leaned back slightly, folded her hands like she was about to close a deal, and said it. "If you're so unhappy, maybe you should think about whether this arrangement is working for you." Soft. Calm. Clean. A dare? Because she knew. She knew I had nowhere to go. No savings, no backup. She knew exactly how tight the leash was, and she tugged it right there over lemon chicken like it was nothing. What do you think I did? You think I backed down? I almost did. I felt it, right there in my chest. That old reflex. Apologize. Smooth it over. Clear the plates, swallow the rest, cry later where no one could hear me. The old Jolene would have done exactly that. But then I looked at Birdie. She was sitting there, pulling apart a piece of chicken with her tiny fingers, completely focused, completely unaware. Just existing in the middle of it. And something in me shifted again. Not loud, not explosive, just final. I saw it all at once, what she was learning. What I was showing her without saying a word. That this was normal. That you could pay for the privilege of being treated like you didn't matter. I stood up. Chair legs scraped against the floor louder than they should have. "You're right, Mom," I said. "This isn't working." I didn't wait for a response. Didn't look back. I went upstairs and started packing. Let me tell you something nobody prepares you for. Packing your life into garbage bags. Not boxes. Not suitcases lined up neatly. Garbage bags. Your clothes. Your kids' clothes. Toys, shoes, whatever fits. Stuffed in, tied off, stacked by the door like you're clearing out something disposable. It's the saddest thing I've ever done. And the most freeing. I had $612 in my account, a quarter tank of gas, and a 4-year-old who thought we were going on an adventure. No one came upstairs, no footsteps, no knock, no wait. At one point, I heard the TV turn back on downstairs. The volume went up like they needed to drown out the sound of me leaving. They went right back to their night, like nothing had happened, like I hadn't just stepped out of it. I carried the bags down myself, one by one. Birdie trailing behind me, holding her stuffed bunny, asking if we were going somewhere fun. I said yes, because what else do you say? I buckled her into the car, closed the door, sat there for a second with my hands on the steering wheel, feeling something tight in my chest loosen just a little. 7:43 p.m. Sunday night. I told myself I wouldn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't. We stayed at a motel that first night. $49. The room smelled like old smoke and something chemical trying to cover it. The bedspread had a stain I chose not to look at too closely. The bathroom light flickered if you left it on too long, but Birdie, she thought it was amazing. There was a vending machine outside, bright lights, buttons she could press. I gave her a couple dollars and she picked Doritos like she'd just won something. She fell asleep by 8:30, orange dust still on her fingers. One hand wrapped around that bunny, and I sat on the edge of that bed, and I cried. Not quiet crying. Not the kind you can swallow down, the kind that shakes you. Not because I missed that house, because a $49 motel room felt safer than my parents' home. Sit with that for a second. The next morning, I started calling every apartment complex in Dayton, every single one. Most didn't even call back. Some laughed when I mentioned my income. A few just said no before I finished the sentence. Then I found one. Ridgewood Gardens. No ridge, no garden. But they had an opening, $850 a month. I went there that afternoon. Birdie sat on the office floor coloring with a broken crayon she found in my bag while I handed over my pay stub. The landlord, Mr. Perkins, looked at the numbers. Looked at me, then at Birdie. He didn't ask a lot of questions. First month, he said, we'll spread the deposit over 3 months. That was it. A complete stranger showed me more kindness in 5 minutes than my own family had in 2 years. We moved into apartment 4B that same week. Garbage bags, 2 suitcases, and an air mattress I picked up from Goodwill. No couch, no table. We ate on the floor that first week. Birdie called it a picnic. I let her. But starting over with nothing isn't romantic. It's math. Every night I lay there staring at the ceiling, running numbers in my head, like if I got it right enough times, something would change. $850 rent. Daycare, gas, food, I was short every month. I picked up doubles. Ate once a day so Birdie could eat 3 times. Told myself I wasn't hungry even when my hands shook halfway through a shift. And you know who called during those weeks? No one. Not my mom. Not my dad. Not Tyler. Not Casey. 27 years in that family. And they let me disappear like I'd never been there. But someone was about to notice. And when she did, it didn't just change things, it exposed everything. My grandmother, Ruth, 73, sharp as ever, drove 2 hours through a rainstorm and walked straight into something my mother thought she'd buried. And what she did next, I still feel it in my chest when I think about it. Because back then, in apartment 4B, I was barely holding things together. Air mattress on the floor. A daughter who thought we were camping indoors. And a bank account that made me sick every time I checked it. I worked every extra shift the Hampton would give me. 6 days, some weeks. Dropped Bertie off at Miss Claudette's at 6:30 in the morning. She ran a home daycare out of her house. And didn't pick her up until almost 6 at night. $200 a month. A miracle. That woman loved Bertie like she was her own. Small mercies. But barely surviving doesn't leave room for anything else. I couldn't get sick, couldn't have car trouble, couldn't have anything go wrong. One unexpected expense and we were done. Every day felt like standing on something thin, hoping it didn't crack. Around week 3, Bertie started asking questions. Smart kid. Too smart sometimes. Mommy, how come we don't go to Grandma Denise's house anymore? I kept my voice steady. We have our own house now. She looked around, took it in. The silence wasn't empty anymore, it was loaded, like something overdue had finally found its way to the surface, and there was no putting it back. And for 4 weeks, no one had even tried. I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where the people who are supposed to love you the most just don't show up? Not even a text. Because 4 weeks after I left, I hadn't heard from a single person in my family. Not one. No, are you okay? No, where are you? Nothing. It was like I'd been erased. Actually, worse than that. I checked the family group chat one night. Just opened it out of habit. And yeah, I wasn't in it anymore. Casey had removed me. My own sister kicked me out like I was some guy she dated for 3 months back in 2019. Clean cut. No explanation. That hit harder than the rent ever did. Because money is one thing. You can explain that, you can argue it. But being deleted? That's deliberate. That's personal. And I sat there staring at my phone, realizing they weren't just ignoring me. They were closing ranks. Let me tell you about the phone call that changed everything. Saturday morning, early March. Bertie was sitting cross-legged on the floor watching cartoons on my phone. We still didn't have a TV. I was in the kitchen, if you could call it that, sitting on the floor with a jar of peanut butter because that was breakfast. No bread, just a spoon. My phone rang. Before I could grab it, Bertie picked it up like it was part of the game. "Hi, this is Bertie," she said, all proud of herself. And then I heard it. "Bertie, baby girl, is that you? Where's your mama?" I froze. Grandma. I moved so fast I almost knocked the jar over grabbing the phone. "Grandma?" "Jolene Marie," she said, and there was something in her voice I didn't recognize. "I just called your mother's house. Tyler told me you moved out weeks ago." A pause. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" Another pause. "Why didn't you tell me?" And I didn't have an answer. Not a real one. Because the truth was, I'd been so deep in survival mode that reaching out hadn't even crossed my mind. And underneath that, there was something worse. Something my mother had built into me over years. Shame. Like needing help meant I'd failed. Like asking for anything meant I wasn't strong enough. Do you see how that works? Keep someone just stable enough to survive, but ashamed enough not to ask for more. I swallowed hard and gave her the short version. That I was paying rent no one else paid. That I cleaned the entire house on top of working full time. That Bertie didn't get a seat at dinner. That I left. There was a pause on the line. Long, heavy. And then Grandma Ruth said, very quietly, "She charged you $1,400? "Yes, ma'am." "And your brother and sister paid nothing?" "Nothing." Another pause. Then she said, "I'm getting in my car." My stomach dropped. "Grandma, you don't have to." "Jolene," she cut in, calm but final, "I didn't ask for permission. What's your address?" That was it. 73 years old. Bad knee. driving a 2009 Buick that sounded like it had a cough it couldn't shake. And she got in that car and drove 2 hours from Lancaster to Dayton without thinking twice. About an hour into her drive, the rain started. Not light rain, the kind that blurs the highway, makes everything gray and slick and uncertain. She drove through it like it wasn't even there. She showed up at my door at noon. I opened it, and there she was. Standing in the hallway, soaked through, hair damp against her face, holding 2 grocery bags. And a quilt. Her quilt. The one from her own bed. She didn't say anything at first, just walked in, looked around, took in the air mattress, the bare walls, the empty kitchen. 30 seconds. No words. Then she looked at me. Her eyes filled. "Oh, baby," she said softly. "How long have you been living like this?" That was it. That was the thing that broke me. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just stepped forward and fell into her, and I cried. Not quiet, not controlled. The kind that comes from somewhere you've been holding shut for too long. I'm not a crier. I'm really not. But something about your grandmother showing up in a rainstorm with groceries and a quilt, it undoes you. Bertie ran over and wrapped her arms around Grandma's leg. "Grandma Ruthie," she said proudly, "we're camping." Grandma looked down at her, smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Not anymore, sweetheart." Then she moved, like she had a plan. She unpacked those grocery bags with precision. Chicken, rice, vegetables, bread, milk, juice boxes, fruit, cereal, real food. She'd stopped at Kroger on the way. She even pulled out a pot. "I bought this too," she said, like it was nothing. She made us lunch right there in that empty kitchen. We stood at the counter because we still didn't have chairs. Chicken and rice. Simple. Warm. The first real meal I'd had in days. And while we ate, I told her everything. Not the short version this time. Everything. 2 years of it. The rent, the cleaning, the way my mom spoke to me, the pot roast dinner, the Sunday table. All of it. She didn't interrupt once. Which, if you knew my grandma, you'd understand. That alone meant something was wrong. That woman always had something to say. But not this time. She just listened. And the more I talked, the harder her face got. By the end, she didn't look emotional anymore. She looked set, like stone. Then she said something that made my stomach twist. "Your mother did this. In my family's house." See, there's something I hadn't told you yet. That house? The one my parents live in? Grandma Ruth helped them buy it. 20 years ago. She gave them $30,000 for the down payment. Everything she had saved. She did it so her grandkids would have stability. A place to grow up. A home. And now? She was standing in my apartment, looking at what that home had actually turned into. She reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and dialed. Right there. Didn't ask me, didn't hesitate. "Put it on speaker." My heart started beating faster. My mom answered on the third ring. "Hey, Mom, what's—" Grandma Ruth didn't let her finish. Her voice came out low, controlled. Sharp in a way I had only heard maybe twice in my entire life. "Denise," she said, "we need to talk." The silence didn't just sit there, it pressed in, heavy and suffocating, like even the air was waiting to see how far this was about to go. And for the first time in my life, my mother had nothing to say. "Denise," Grandma Ruth said, her voice steady, almost calm, "I'm sitting in Jolene's apartment right now." A beat. Her apartment with no furniture. Another beat. Her apartment where she's sleeping on an air mattress with your granddaughter. Still nothing on the other end. "Would you like to explain to me why I'm just now finding out about this?" Silence. Complete silence. And I have to be honest, hearing my mom speechless like that, it did something to me. Something sharp and unfamiliar. I almost smiled. Almost. Is that wrong? Because in that moment, I didn't care. My mom finally stumbled into something that sounded like words. "Mom, she chose to leave. I didn't make her—" You charged your daughter $1,400. Grandma Ruth cut in, clean and precise. While Tyler and Casey lived there for free. No rise in her voice, no emotion, which made it worse. You had that child cleaning your house after working all day, and you didn't even feed her daughter at your table. There it was again, that silence. Then my mom shifted into what she always did best. Deflection. You're only hearing her side, Mom. You don't know the whole... I'm hearing the side that ends with my great-granddaughter sleeping on an air mattress, Grandma Ruth said. A pause. That's the only side I need. I wish you could have heard her. She wasn't yelling. She never yelled. This was worse. It was controlled. Deliberate. Every word placed exactly where it needed to land. And it landed hard. My mom knew that tone. She grew up with it. And for the first time in years, she sounded scared of it. I gave you $30,000 for that house, Grandma Ruth continued, so my grandchildren would have a home. All of them. Each word slower than the last. And you turned it into a way to squeeze money out of the one who could least afford it. I felt my chest tighten. I'm ashamed of you, Denise. A pause. Your father would be ashamed of you. That did it. I heard it through the phone, my mom's breath catching, sharp and broken. A gasp. Grandpa Walt. He'd been gone 8 years, but he was still the one person my mom never wanted to disappoint. And Grandma had just put him in the room. My mom started crying. Actual crying. I didn't mean for it to get this bad, she said, voice shaking. I was just trying to teach her responsibility. I didn't realize... Responsibility, Grandma Ruth repeated softly. Not questioning, correcting. You taught Tyler nothing. You taught Casey nothing. A beat. The only one you taught responsibility to was the one who already had it. Silence. That's not teaching, Denise. Another beat. That's punishment. And then she hung up. No goodbye, no hesitation. Just ended it. The quiet that followed felt different. Not empty. Resolved. Grandma Ruth set the phone down like it was just another object. Then she turned to me. Now, she said, let's fix this. And when I tell you that woman moved like she had a personal vendetta against my situation, I mean it. The next 2 weeks, she didn't slow down once. That following Monday, she drove back to Lancaster, went straight to her bank, and took out money. She wouldn't tell me how much, wouldn't even hint. Just showed up at my apartment later that week with an envelope. Set it on the counter. This is for furniture and 3 months of breathing room, she said. I shook my head immediately. Grandma, I can't, don't you dare argue with me. So, of course, I argued with her. She ignored me completely, didn't even acknowledge it. Classic Grandma Ruth. By the end of that week, everything had changed. Not everything, but enough. Bertie had a real bed. I had a real bed. We had a kitchen table. Chairs that matched just enough to count. A couch from a consignment shop that smelled faintly like lavender and something older. Perfume, maybe. But it was the most comfortable thing I'd ever sat on. Bertie got a little bookshelf in her corner, our one-bedroom version of her room. Grandma filled it with books she'd found at a library sale, stacked them carefully like she was building something solid out of paper and stories. But she wasn't done. Not even close. Because the furniture? That was the easy part. What she did next. That's what shook everything. The following weekend, she drove to my parents' house. I wasn't there, but Tyler told me about it later, and Tyler, he's a lot of things, but a good liar isn't one of them, so I believe him. She walked in like she owned the place, didn't wait to be invited, sat my parents down at the kitchen table. Tyler and Casey were there too, and she made them all sit. No one stood, no one left. She told them she was reconsidering the financial help she'd planned to leave them. Said the way they treated me and Bertie showed her something about their character she didn't like. Then she laid it out, clear, direct. Tyler and Casey were going to start paying rent. Real rent. Or they were going to move out, and my mother was going to apologize to me. A real apology, not the kind wrapped in I'm sorry you feel that way. My mom tried to push back. Of course she did. Tyler said she started to say something about misunderstandings and context. Grandma Ruth didn't let her finish. Denise, she said, I'm not asking. That was it. Conversation over. Tyler called me that night. First time he'd reached out since I left. His voice sounded off, unsteady. Joe, he said, Grandma came over. It was intense. I leaned back against my new couch. Welcome to accountability, Tyler. He went quiet, long enough that I thought the call dropped. Then, I should have said something, he muttered. About the rent, about everything. I knew it wasn't fair. I didn't rush to fill that silence. Didn't soften it. Yeah, I said finally. You should have. Casey didn't call? That didn't surprise me. But then, my mom did something I never saw coming. And the way it happened, it didn't feel like an apology. It felt like something else entirely. The knock didn't feel like a surprise. It felt like something catching up, like the past had finally found my address. And when I opened the door, everything shifted again. 3 days after Grandma Ruth's visit, my mom showed up. No call, no warning, just a knock on a Tuesday morning. I opened the door, and there she was. Denise. Standing there in her nice coat, holding a stack of Tupperware like it was some kind of offering. She looked off. Smaller somehow, like something inside her had been pulled out and not replaced. Like Grandma Ruth had taken the air right out of her. Can I come in? She asked. I almost said no, I really did. I felt it right there, ready to come out. But then Bertie heard her voice. Grandma Niece. She came running, smiling like nothing had ever happened, and I couldn't slam the door in front of that. So I stepped aside, let her in. She walked slowly, eyes scanning the apartment. The second-hand couch, the table, the little bookshelf in the corner, everything clean, everything small. Something shifted behind her eyes, not judgment, not quite guilt. Something closer to recognition. She set the Tupperware down on the counter. Lemon chicken, she said, like that meant something. Like it could bridge anything. And I just looked at it, because all I could think was, you think lemon chicken fixes 2 years of this? It made me angry. And sad. At the same time. She sat down at the table. The one Grandma bought. The one I had because she made sure I couldn't afford my own. And then she started talking. Said Grandma Ruth told her things she wasn't ready to hear. Said she hadn't slept in 3 nights. That she kept replaying everything, the rent, the cleaning, that Thursday dinner. Bertie without a chair. I didn't soften it. Mom, I said, it was bad for 2 years. You didn't care. She flinched. Actually flinched. Good. Then she surprised me. You're right, she said. Just like that. I told myself you were fine because that was easier. You never pushed back. So I kept pushing more. She swallowed hard. And I made excuses for Tyler and Casey because that was easier too. The old version of me would have stepped in right there. It's okay, Mom. Smoothed it over, gave her a way out. But that version of me didn't live here anymore. So I let the silence sit. Let her feel it. Your granddaughter ate standing at your counter, I said finally. Because there wasn't a chair for her. She closed her eyes. I ate 1 meal a day for weeks so she could eat 3. Her shoulders dropped. That's not unfair, Mom, I said quietly. That's cruel. She covered her face. And she cried. Not the kind she used to do, controlled, measured, aware of who was watching. This was different. Messy. Uncontained. Bertie looked up at me, confused. Mommy, Grandma is sad. I crouched down beside her. She's okay, baby. Grown-ups need to cry sometimes. When my mom finally pulled herself together, her voice was thinner. Tell me how to fix this. I looked at the Tupperware. You can't fix it with lemon chicken. She let out this small, broken laugh. I know. A pause. What else can I do? And that was the moment, the real one, where everything either reset or didn't. I'm not coming back, I said. This is our home now. She nodded. Slow. If you want to be in our lives, everything changes. Another nod. No more treating me like the maid. No more acting like Birdie's a burden. Her mouth tightened. She's not a burden, she said quickly. She was, I replied. The way you treated her, she was. That one landed. She didn't argue, just sat with it. Then she told me something I didn't expect. Your grandmother. She hesitated. She's making Tyler and Casey pay $500 a month each. I blinked, actually blinked. Seriously? She nodded. Casey called her screaming, said it wasn't fair. I almost laughed. What did Grandma say? She said, fair? Call your sister and ask her about fair. I leaned back. God, I love that woman. 2 weeks later, my dad showed up, alone. That alone was shocking. Hank's entire life was a loop. Work, recliner, ESPN, repeat. But there he was, standing at my door with a Home Depot bag. I brought you a smoke detector, he said. Your hallway doesn't have one. That was his version of care. No speech, no apology, just safety equipment. He walked through the apartment checking things. Windows, outlets, a loose cabinet hinge I hadn't even noticed. Then he sat down, took a breath, and said something I never thought I'd hear from him. I should have stopped it. I didn't interrupt, didn't help him out. He kept going. Your grandmother called me, said, silence isn't neutral. Silence is siding with whoever has the power. He looked down at his hands, and for a second he looked smaller too. My dad, who once drove 45 minutes the wrong direction and blamed the GPS, was admitting he was wrong. That mattered, more than I expected. When he stood up to leave, he hesitated. Then he hugged me. Stiff, awkward. Held on about 3 seconds too long. But he did it, and that mattered too. Over the next couple months, things started shifting. Slowly. Carefully. Mom started calling, not to lecture, not to correct. Just to ask about Birdie. She asked to take her to the park one Saturday. Didn't demand, that was new. Tyler came by one afternoon, helped me move a dresser. I'm paying rent now, he said, and I kind of hate you for it. But he was smiling. Welcome to adulthood, I told him. It's terrible here. Casey was the hardest. Of course she was. 2 months went by before I heard from her. A text. Mom says I need to apologize, so I'm sorry. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back. Your purse was in Birdie's chair. Think about that. No reply. 3 days later, another message. That was messed up. I'm actually sorry. 2 extra words. But they mattered, because it meant she'd thought about it. Really thought about it. And that was the first real shift. But even then, something still felt unfinished. Like the story wasn't done pushing yet. And I didn't realize how much until the next thing happened. The tension didn't disappear. It shifted. Sat under everything like a quiet warning that things could still fall apart if we weren't careful. And Thanksgiving, that's where we all felt it. Grandma Ruth hosted that year, of course she did. She made it clear before anyone even walked through the door. This family is sitting at my table, she said, voice calm but final, and acting like a family, or I'll know the reason why. No one questioned it. No one even tried. Everyone showed up. Even Casey, quiet, stiff, carrying a store-bought pie like it was some kind of peace offering she didn't know how to present. The house smelled like turkey and butter and something steady, something solid. Grandma's house always felt like that. Grounded. Like nothing messy could fully take root there. We all sat down. Same table she'd had for decades, same chairs, same worn spots in the wood where years of dinners had left their mark. This time, everyone had a seat. Birdie climbed into hers without hesitation. No looking around, no checking if she was allowed. That alone almost undid me. Dinner started slow. Forks, plates, small talk that didn't quite land. Then Grandma Ruth set her fork down. "Before we eat," she said, "everyone's saying what they're grateful for." A ripple went through the table, not panic, but discomfort. "Good." She looked at Tyler first. He leaned back, ran a hand through his hair. "I'm grateful and for not being homeless," he said, smirking slightly, "since Grandma made me pay rent." A few quiet laughs. The tension loosened, just a little. Grandma nodded once like she'd expected exactly that. Then she looked at my dad. Hank shifted in his chair, cleared his throat like he was about to give a speech he didn't want to give. "I'm grateful for the turkey," he said finally. A beat. "Came out good." That was it. That was all he had. And somehow, it fit. Grandma didn't push him. Didn't need to. Then her eyes moved to my mom, and everything tightened again. Denise sat there, hands folded too neatly in front of her, shoulders pulled in just slightly like she was bracing. She looked at me, not past me, at me. "I'm grateful," she started, then stopped. Took a breath. "I'm grateful my daughter is stronger than I deserve." The words landed hard. No one moved. No one filled the silence. Because this time, there was nothing to soften. It just sat there. Honest, heavy. And then, "I'm grateful for Doritos." Bertie's voice cut right through it. Loud, certain, completely unaware of the emotional landmine she'd just stepped over. And just like that, the table broke. Laughter, real laughter, spread across it. Not forced, not careful. It cracked the tension open and let something lighter in. Even my mom smiled. After that, dinner flowed. Not perfectly, but easier. Plates passed. Conversations started and started again. No one fought for space. No one was pushed out. After we finished, Mom and I ended up in the kitchen together, side by side. She washed, I dried. Same rhythm. Water running, plates clinking. No music. No distractions. Just quiet. Not awkward. Not heavy. Just quiet. At one point, our hands brushed, reaching for the same plate. She pulled back slightly. "Sorry," she murmured. "It's fine," I said. And that was it. No big moment. No speech. But somehow, it was enough. Things aren't perfect now. They're not supposed to be. We're still rebuilding, and rebuilding isn't clean. Old patterns creep in sometimes. Little comments, old habits trying to slip back into place. And I stop them immediately. Set boundaries my mom doesn't always like. But she hears them now. That's the difference. Tyler got a full-time job. Still complains about rent like it personally offends him, but he pays it. Casey and I, we're civil. Careful. There's distance there. Maybe one day it'll close. Maybe it won't. I'm okay either way. Because I'm not waiting for it anymore, but I know this. Leaving that house with garbage bags and $600? That was the hardest thing I've ever done. And the best. Because it forced everything into the light. My grandmother Ruth? She's the toughest person I know. No hesitation. No half measures. When she sees something wrong, she fixes it. And that little girl, the one who stood next to a table while a purse took her seat. She doesn't wait anymore. She doesn't check if there's space for her. She has her own chair, at every table, her own plate. And a mom who will never, not once, let anyone make her feel like she doesn't belong. That's the part that matters. That's the part I carry forward. And if any of this felt familiar to you, if any part of it sat a little too close, just know this. You deserve a real seat at the table too. No conditions, no negotiations. Just a place where you belong. And if you've ever had to build that place for yourself, then you already know. It changes everything. But this house doesn't have a yard. No, I said, but it has us. And that's better than a yard. She thought about that longer than I expected. Then she looked up at me, serious. "Can we get a dog?" 4 years old, already negotiating. And I opened my mouth to answer. Right as my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in weeks,